Next are administrative reports, and we'll begin with the principal report. Reed Foster, Granite Ridge School.
Well, good evening, everyone. Happy last week in February, and thanks for giving us this opportunity to share what we're doing here at Granite Ridge School. And we're going to tonight show you how we are working with our non-negotiables that our district just recently put into policy earlier this school year. We started this journey 7 years ago with our non-negotiables. They were aspirational at that time and they turned intentional. And now with policy, we know they're super important to the work we do. So our whole presentation tonight is geared around that thereof, how we're implementing work with our non-negotiables, utilizing this great space we have at Granite Ridge. So again, thank you for supporting this school building. And tonight we have a nice team with us. We have Brooke Goldsworthy, she's a 5th grade teacher here at Granite Ridge. Tiffany Haas, 4th grade teacher. John Hagan, our school TOSA. Matt Hayden, the district math coach, is our ICS for Equity district liaison. Bridget Lawler, 3rd grade teacher. Lauren Lennon, our school psychologist. Melissa Mogg, our advanced learners teacher for Cottage Grove, and us here at Granite Ridge. And finally, Charlotte Miller, our art teacher here at Granite Ridge. Next, I'm going to turn it over to John Hagan.
All right, thanks everybody. Hopefully you can hear me, and I'm going to be navigating the slides at the same time. So if you need to give me a little heads up or anything that's not working correctly, I'll do my best to keep up with all the speakers tonight. So typically what we do at all of our professional developments or anytime we get together as a staff is really focus in on what the purpose is of that meeting. And we use, just like with our students, a learning target. It really promotes clarity among what we really want to get out of our time together. It offers us an opportunity to kind of circle back at the end to check in. How did we do with our learning target and setting that purpose? And did we meet the goals that we set for ourselves? So just like in all the things that we do with our students, we try to model that with our staff as well. So this evening, you'll notice the learning target is today that we will have a better understanding of how Granite Ridge School intentionally embeds the work of our MGSD's non-negotiables into our daily practices. So that's really what we're going to focus in on today. And so we'll circle back to that a little later. So keep that in mind. The next slide just gives us an overview of our, as you are well aware, the Monona Grove non-negotiables that we are tied very tightly to. It's a really important component to our work because it helps us streamline everything that we do in terms of professional development, how we talk about kids, the different spaces that we use. And as you all know, it's been that 7-year journey of brainstorming some of these ideas, making them really aspirational. We weren't all the way there, nor are we yet today. However, a lot of the choices that we're making and the conversations that we're having are moving that towards being more intentional about these non-negotiables. And now, as our equity statement and our non-negotiables have become part of policy, we're even continuing to move even further along that continuum to make sure that our work is really highlighted and that we're holding tightly to these 7 different principles. Oftentimes at different professional developments, we try to highlight several of them that are really closely tied to. For example, oftentimes we'll tie to number 3, making sure that we are engaging in that high quality core instruction within those heterogeneous groups. But for tonight's purposes, we're going to highlight them all for you. So sit back and get ready for seeing some of the amazing things that happen at Granite Ridge School. And so I'm going to hand it over to Brooke Goldsworthy to talk about our first non-negotiable.
All right, so non-negotiable 1, stating that each MGSD employee shares responsibility for the prevention of student failure. The photo on this slide is a picture of 2 classrooms. The door is opened up between so that all the students can engage in the same learning. And this is an example of a whole group lesson for both classes at the same time. It allows us the opportunity to have support by multiple people depending on the day. So depending on which day it is, you could see 2 different general education teachers, a special education teacher, an SEA, a reading specialist, and or English language support. So there's lots of different people that can come in and out throughout this time to help support these groups of students. All the staff members that come in during this time share the responsibility for all students. So they work with multiple different groups depending on the day, and those groups rotate by the day or by the week, depending on kind of what unit we're in. On the next slide, there is a short video where we're going to hear from some students about the reading stations time that they have.
I'm Ellie. I'm Marilla. And I'm Demi.
And today we're going to share about some reading rotations that we have done. Demi, can you tell me about our reading rotations?
Yes, we usually do like book club reading or Words Their Way or Choice Sport or I'm Ready.
Ellie, what adults have you gotten to work with for reading stations?
Miss Goldsworthy, Miss Powell, Miss Verhagen, and Miss Doman.
And Marella, what's your favorite part about reading stations?
My favorite part is either the menu or book clubs.
What I like about reading stations is now, like, when did book groups, we could just take turns on reading, and now we can choose what we do for reading, so I like that.
And what adults have you gotten to work with during reading stations?
Miss Goldsworthy, Miss Powell, and Miss Doman.
Hadley, what about you?
My favorite part was book clubs because like the books that we got to read were what we wanted to read, like we got to choose, and just getting to talk to like one another about the books. And that was my favorite.
And who have you gotten to work with?
I've got to work with Miss Verhagen, Miss Doman, and Miss Goldsworthy.
So as you can see, these students kind of highlighted some of the different activities that can be done during this time. And keeping the activities open and flexible allows a lot of support to come in and out and be flexible in how we use that. And as you could also see, each of these students got to work with multiple different adults during this time. And it changes depending on what unit we're in. So all of the adults that do come in and out share in the responsibility and the success of these students, and we enjoy working with them on a regular basis. So continuing on with non-negotiable number 1, you will now hear from Reed again.
Okay, now I'm going to give you an example here of our servery near our flex cafes. And so when that non-negotiable says all, we believe in the value of all of our staff members. And right here's an example of how our food service with our design, having a food service person at each one of our flex cafes or serveries gives that person a chance to work with students on that one-on-one, get to know their names, get to build a relationship. Do they like ranch sauce? Do they like ketchup? All those kind of things. It's a really another neat example of how we're using the space, but also all employees sharing the stake of making sure that our students get the best educational experience. And also seeing this picture of classroom teachers there at that servery helping students check out as they get their food. And they'll continue on into the Flex Cafe because there they'll see our educational assistants to do that supervision. And that's a great way for them to connect. Maybe check in about a student that's not doing so well today, maybe sad. Maybe there's a way that they could help lift that spirit up. Maybe keep an eye on something that's maybe been happening in the classroom. But there's that connector again, all staff that's there for our students. Then after recess, the way the building is designed, that educational assistant that comes in with a grade level, they can come back into that grade level habitat and connect with teachers and just give them some updates on how maybe recess or how lunch went. So there's a continuation all day long of all the employees having a responsibility here at Granite Ridge School. All right, next up, I think I'm sliding this over to Matt Hayden.
You're sliding it to me. So here we have a picture of a third grade co-planning team, and this team is made up of a few third grade teachers, a special education teacher, the district math coach, and an advanced learner support teacher. And the team is working together for all students. And the TV in this working space allows us to all view the same resource that we might be discussing. And each teacher brings something unique and different to the table to help create lessons that are accessible to all. So Mr. Foster is now going to discuss and start non-negotiable number 2.
Okay, for non-negotiable number 2, you all are aware, but this is regarding principles of natural proportions will be used to support the mirror demographics of students in all educational settings. So here's an example of 2 different classrooms here at Granite Ridge School. And what we're talking about and what we mean by that is we have this, we started a new way of doing our placement. And so basically with our placement, we allows the demographics to mirror what we see is in the larger school. In this way, we eliminate that idea of a deficit-based thinking or stereotype threat related to that's a special education room or that's an EL classroom. We work hard to mirror the demographics of varied abilities as well. So no longer are there academic homogeneous groupings in classrooms for the same reasons previously mentioned. This allows us to look at each classroom as a group of students with a range of needs, regardless of labels. It gives a better individualized understanding of students rather than focusing on their gaps in learning or abilities. Now I'm going to actually move it over to Matt for non-negotiable number 3.
Reed called me math. I'm the math coach, but my name is Matt. That's a common occurrence, I guess, that happens across the district. But non-negotiable number 3, all learners will participate in high quality core instruction within heterogeneous groups. So here we have images of students working together on a math project, a challenging math project. And we can see the furniture and the setup of the school really fosters that collaborative nature. But this heterogeneous grouping is both with the classroom, but within the classes themselves. And what you can't see that happens across the school is all of the other things that are kind of listed here in these bullet points. So teachers and staff are continually working to offer opportunities for students to work collaboratively together. And they're working to build classroom communities across academic content area, SEL, and those things. Within that, they're fostering these student to teacher relationships and these student to student relationships so that when they are working collaboratively, they have the best chance of success. Another thing that you can't really see is high expectations. The expectation is that all students are engaged with this grade level activity, this grade level learning. And that requires some of the things that we saw a little bit ago about these groups of people working together to create these UDL lessons, these lessons that are designed from the get-go for a range of learners and that have multiple entry points. And not just entry points as far as academics, but entry points that go beyond academics, such as interests and engagement. So I'm going to turn it over to Tiffany Haas, 4th grade teacher.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Haas, 4th grade, and I'm going to continue discussing how Granite Ridge students are participating in the high quality instruction within heterogeneous groupings. So on this slide, you're going to see students who are meeting with their peers and a teacher during their reading block at a common space in the room. And sometimes this takes place at, the table, but sometimes it might take place in their desks or out in our habitats or in the small group rooms, the social stairs, the library, anywhere where students are able to work. And then these 4th grade students in particular are meeting with their book groups, and students were able to choose their chapter book based solely on their interests and not on any sort of reading level or assessments. So before these book clubs even started, the teachers thoughtfully chose several books from our library book room to meet the interests. And then once the teacher chose those 3 books, she read a little bit of each one to the kids, or she found a book trailer for the students to watch just to give them an idea of what the book might be like, to kind of to gauge their interest so they could choose what would be best for them. So after they got a little intro to each book, the students told their teacher which book they'd like to be a part of. So there was no grouping by ability or reading level, and there was no limit to how many students could be in each group. So students were placed entirely off of their interest, and they got to say what would engage them the most in their next several months of reading. So giving students that choice was extremely empowering and motivating. And then if a student chooses a book that was too difficult for them to read on their own, then all the teachers are making sure that students are still able to access the text by either reading with a partner, or they were listening to a recording of the book that their teacher has set up for them. So that way it allows all students to be able to meet with their book clubs already ready to go and discuss and dig deeper into the book. And then if I can go to the next one. All right, and then continuing on with another example of how students are receiving that high quality core instruction with heterogeneous groupings. You're going to notice on this slide that we have students performing on our beautiful social stairs, and they're performing a reader's theater that they have been practicing for an entire week. Students were once again able to choose a script and that they wanted to perform based on what their interest was. So the teachers found several different options, placed them all out, kind of gave them a little background on what each one would be about, and students chose based solely off of what they thought would be most fun to learn and perform. And then while participating in the Reader's Theater, not only were all students engaged, but they were already asking us, when can we do this again? Could we do it once a month? Could we do it once a week? Can we start a club for kids who like to perform? And what was so interesting was kids who are the shyest in class were shining in this, because this finally gave them an outlet of something that they maybe don't always get to show in class. So, you know, we had kids that said, can I have the main character part? Can I have the main narrator part, that you would never guess, because they were so excited because they had a choice in their education and their say. So up next, you're going to be hearing from Charlotte Miller, our talented art teacher and related arts representative for tonight.
Thank you, Tiffany. So continuing on with this non-negotiable and the heterogeneous grouping and choice, this slide shows photos of students in an art class where they were given the opportunity to choose an artwork, a famous artwork that interests them. Images are up all over the classroom. They could choose the one that they wanted to talk about and learn more about, and then they could get up and talk about that. And at first I wasn't sure how this was going to work, how many students would want to get up and talk about artwork that they just based on solely on what they saw in the work. They were to tell the different details that they saw. They were to tell how it made them feel. They were to tell how what they thought that the artist was trying to say through this artwork. And also the last thing that they were to comment on was, if they were the artist, what would they title this artwork? And I was just blown away by all the students that volunteered to stand up with their small group that they formed themselves based on the choice that they made with this artwork. So it was really neat to see some different groupings come forward and to hear those voices talking about artwork and being excited about it too. All right, next slide, John. So our next focus will be on non-negotiable number 4. So I will focus on the related arts for my slides in this non-negotiable. When each of our students enter the related art spaces at Granite Ridge School, they are met with many opportunities to be engaged, to express themselves, and to feel represented. So here first we have a video that Ms. Freilich took in her art room that shows the different options for choice of seating, student suggestion zone, creating quiet zone if needed, offering diverse supplemental materials, and a safe space. Our related arts teachers work very hard to integrate cultural appreciation into our lessons. As you can see here, we have 2 photographs. We work very closely with our special ed teachers and assistants to help us best differentiate our lessons to meet the needs for all students. In the top photo, you can see a student who has visual impairment working with his special ed assistant. Materials have been set out in an accessible and intuitive way for each learner to create. The second photo shows the makerspace where students are working on a stop motion video for library class. Students of all abilities were able to utilize the variety of materials available to fit their vision for the project. And then here, there is a video and a photograph. It's showing a 4th grader who's able to use a ramp to help him get a strike during the bowling unit in Phy Ed. This student prefers sitting to standing, so being able to sit on the mat and roll the ball down the ramp made the activity accessible to him. So this is one example of how activities are differentiated in Phy Ed at Granite Ridge so that all students can engage and be successful. And there's a video to show you too. Ready? Start. Here, go! Okay, Lauren Lennon, our school psychologist, will present the next slide.
All right, so continuing to think about our work within non-negotiable 4, here are some examples of how staff at Granite Ridge are using the physical design of our grade level habitats to allow for students to have choice and autonomy in where their learning occurs, and also to foster collaboration and community. And these spaces really help build students' independence, allow them to take ownership over their learning. So in this first picture, you can see a group of 4th grade students who are collaborating on their Readers Theater project. And these students are set up in what we call a cove, or it's a common workspace between 2 classrooms that allows them to really focus in on their group work with minimized distractions. And then you can also see within this picture how some of the furniture really fosters that collaboration. So they're spread out with their materials around a large table, or they could choose to use one of the mobile desks and chairs to engage in their Readers Theater work together. And then the second picture shows 3rd grade students who are engaging in independent reading time, and they were given options for different optimal reading spots. And these students chose a comfy couch spot outside of their classroom to work. Then, next slide. I'm going to talk a little bit about our social emotional work. So social emotional learning is happening universally in our building, and the curriculum is organized and coordinated by our awesome school counselor and taught by our classroom teachers. And each month we dig into a different character trait. So for example, this month is empathy, last month was kindness. And the goal of this approach is to provide all students with the opportunity to learn about and practice different social emotional skills through direct instruction and modeling from staff, and then give students the opportunity to practice, reflect, and engage with their classmates on some of that skill development. And you can see just a snippet of that in a picture to the far left with one of our 3rd grade teachers engaging in a lesson with her class. And then students are also given the option to use tools throughout our building aimed at facilitating their use of personal coping skills and strategies. So for example, all classrooms have been provided calm down baskets for students to use when they need it. And then in these other 2 pictures, you'll see a sensory wall that has been put in place within each grade level habitat. Here, a 5th grader is using one of the breathing strategies. And then that last picture is just a snippet into what is in the works of being a 4th grade student lounge. This was a totally student-led project, and they've advocated to Mr. Foster about the need for this space in one of our empty classrooms, came up with a blueprint for what's going to be provided within this student lounge and expectations for the space, and are really working to create an area that promotes SEL for all students in that habitat, which I think is a really great example of students taking ownership over their learning and their learning space. So next you will hear from Melissa Mock.
Hi, I'm going to talk about non-negotiable 5, and a theme that you've seen before is going to come up again. And that non-negotiable is that educators with a range of expertise are intentionally aligned to create teams that increase each other's capacity through a co-planning and co-serving model in support of all learners. And at Granite Ridge School, we intentionally group staff members with varying expertise at all edges to work with classroom teachers during their planning time. And during this planning time, we look specifically at ways that we can support, that we can scaffold, that we can challenge all students so that they can engage with that grade level curriculum. And our goal is so that we can build capacity among all staff to do this at all time. And as you can see, the physical space at Granite Ridge School makes meeting with different teams of educators possible. There's access to technology, large tables that we can spread out at. And also with the variety of spaces, each grade level can choose a meeting space that works for them. So sometimes we meet in flex cafes, sometimes we meet in classrooms. And so the physical space allows us to really dig into that co-planning time. Next up, you're going to hear again from Reed.
Thanks, Melissa. That last non-negotiable uses the word intentional. I think there's also this opportunity in this building for impromptu. The design you see here is in the library. It's 4 teachers, different grade levels meeting around a spot together, again, having great ability to collaborate and talk with one another. You've been in the building and you know that our one wing is all of our related arts classes. And so with that, sometimes you'll walk out there and as if in between a related arts class, you'll see all of the related arts teachers out there talking to one another and maybe collaborating over one of their events coming up. Maybe a lesson that they've worked together on creating. And then also, like Melissa said, our flex cafes, because they're only used for an 11 o'clock and a 12 o'clock lunch, oftentimes not only are teachers using that for the co-planning idea, but there's small groups of students that use that space for their level of collaboration, because we know how beneficial that is to their education as well. And now I'm going to pass it on to John.
All right, Reed stealing some of my good lines here, I tell you. As we talk a little bit about the intentionality and the spaces that we use of bringing staff together to meet the needs of students, this is what makes me really excited is this photo right here. The Flex Cafe, one of the principles behind that was to not occupy a large amount of space with not a lot of use. So this Flex Cafe allows for more relationships, I think, to be built, especially in terms of lunchtime, indoor recess space. It's a more intimate space where kids can build those relationships, have conversations with peers and adults. But it also gives them ownership over the space as well, because it's within their grade level. And so they have a sense of pride within that. And I've seen personally firsthand how they take a little bit better care of it rather than if it was just a large open cafeteria that was used by the entire school. What's really great about this photo is you're seeing 3 different classrooms get together to do a collaborative math activity. They're working on division. And what you'll notice is there's classroom teachers here, there's special education assistants, the principal was actually in the room, myself as the TOSA was there to support, and we even had our lunchroom supervisors helping out and really offering their expertise as well. So it was such an amazing group effort. You'll see kids have manipulatives out working on division. Some might be drawing pictures using a whiteboard or crayons or markers. But the exciting part, the most exciting part, is they're all working on those fourth grade standards regardless of their abilities. So in this picture alone, I can identify students receiving special education services, students that are receiving English language learning opportunities. There's students that may not be identified as super strong in math, but look at the collaboration happening, and everyone has that opportunity to be successful. And that's really what a lot of these spaces, especially this Flex Cafe, is showcasing for us. And then I think it's my turn to wrap it up as well. So as you know, we started at the beginning with our learning target and with all of our professional development. And anytime that we meet as a staff, whether it's a bigger group or not, we always circle back to that learning target. So that learning target today, we will have a better understanding of how Granite Ridge School intentionally embeds our work with our MGSD non-negotiables into our daily practices. Typically, we'd ask you to fill out an exit slip or maybe give some thumbs up, but we'll let you slide on that one tonight. It's getting a little late, so we just want to take this opportunity to say thank you for allowing us to showcase this work. We're just so excited to show how our building and our work as a staff is aligning to our non-negotiables and how we're really making this intentional and purposeful, and how throughout the years, we're continuing to move further along on that continuum, like I said earlier, and just deepening our work to make the best possible outcomes for every single student that comes through our doors, and help us set a solid foundation throughout the district K-12. So thank you very much. And if you have any questions, Reed Foster will be fielding those.
Peter?
My first comment is, John, how come thumbs down isn't an option? He said, first of all, I have nothing but two big thumbs up. And what I'm most pleased to see actually is your first non-negotiable acknowledges that we can fail students. That's not a trivial thing to say, but it is the first step, is the first and an essential step to improving how we serve students. I'm very pleased to see the integration of new, and I'll call them technologies, teaching technologies, and the way we're serving students. And I want to note that this is not. This has been observed. I've gotten feedback from students and parents that they appreciate, particularly as we come out of the pandemic. People are talking about this, that they're seeing a difference in the way that we're educating students, in the technology essentially with which we educate students, was by acknowledging and not playing to, but educating to different styles, what we have learned, and adopting that to improve what we're doing in education. So the work that you're doing here has not gone unnoticed. It's not gone unnoticed in students and parents and administrators or this board. So I want to say that we appreciate it and want to give you two big thumbs up for that. At the same time, a teacher should not be standing on a chair if you guys need resources, which was in the last photo. If you guys need resources so that somebody can be raised up and stand up, well, come to us. We need to figure that out. So we don't have accidents waiting to happen. If that's what you need to do, heck, we'll figure that out. So there's a way that a teacher can do that without standing on a chair.
Okay, Elizabeth?
That was really funny, Peter. I mean, you all had me at like, we're going to talk about how we operationalize this policy. So, I mean, major kudos there. I think, when I think about our, equity non-negotiables, being turned into policy, and I have the great privilege of sitting on our policy committee with Susan Manning and Susan Fox, a lot of the discussion we had, right, is around the languaging aspects of the non-negotiable, right? They're wordy, they're kind of wonky, right? And it's really nice to see how those really live and breathe in a real setting. And so I really appreciated how you broke that down and how you gave those explicit examples. And I think it just reinforces, to me anyway, you know, I'll let my other committee members speak for themselves, but what exactly, you know, we wanted to see happen when we moved those into policy. So thanks for that. And I really appreciate how much you highlighted student voice and choice. I know that over the last several board meetings, for those of you who are followers of the board meetings, we've been talking a lot about mental health and trauma-informed practices, and how I want to cannot underscore enough or highlight enough how much student voice and choice is critically important as a trauma-informed practice, as instructional engagement practice, as just like good teaching and learning. And then the concept of like high expectations and high supports, which was just, I think you didn't say it explicitly, but it was embedded throughout everything that you talked about, right? This idea that we set the bar here and we will help you meet it with whatever you need. It is, again, a huge trauma-informed value. It's a huge equity issue. And so I really appreciated it. And I loved all the videos and hearing from the students directly. So thanks a lot for all of your work. It was really great. And I'm glad the new building's working so well for you all. It looks like you can do some pretty neat stuff.
Thank you. Susan Manning?
I totally echo the thoughts of the other board members, and so many thanks for all that you've done. Takes me back to one of my first days as an early board member. There was a teacher who invited me to come to their class and watch. And I was so incredibly impressed with the things that they were doing with the students in the integration of their thoughts and philosophies, and identifying each student and their needs and meeting those. And actually that was Reed Foster. And to see that again in this way was so incredible. I can't thank each and every one of you for, so it's hard to sleep at night as a board member. And to watch this presentation brings so much, at least to me, in terms of what I want to do and how I want to support you. It was absolutely an incredible presentation. And the integration and identification of each and every student in the presentation was incredible. Great staff. Thank you.
Susan Fox?
I don't really have anything to add other than to just reiterate that I so much appreciate the presentation, because, you know, we talk about all these ideas and they seem lofty and they seem aspirational a lot of times. And it's just been so nice to hear, and with some of the previous presentations too, but hear for you directly to take the equity, the non-negotiables, for example, and just show how you're really working with them. And it's just, it's wonderful to see. And you know, earlier when I thanked all the staff for what they're doing, it's this kind of thing that I just wish the general public could see and have a better understanding of, just all of the serious work and thought and collaboration that you guys put in every day. It's really, really nice presentation about it as well. Thank you.
Right. No other comments from board members. I just want to echo everything that my fellow board members are saying. This was a phenomenal presentation, and it really shows that you have a lot of student involvement and innovation as well. And you definitely think out of the box. So we appreciate all that you do, and thank you for your presentation again, to the Granite Ridge staff. All right.
Before we let him go, if I could just make one quick comment, and Mr. Foster, I think you need to share with the board that photo of the group together in the Flex Cafe. Talk a little bit about how that group came together and why we had 3 classes in that space at one time, and it was a little bit impromptu, but you can see how everyone just jumped in together. So we want to tell a little bit about the background of that.
Sure. So first of all, to Peter's comment, I actually asked for the picture to make a little adjustment and do some photoshopping so she was staying on the ground. But anyhow, I didn't get my way on that. But you all know about our sub situation that we've been dealing with this year. And so in the middle of the day, actually about 15 minutes before this happened, a teacher in the building became ill, and then another person became ill. It was like bang, bang, and all of a sudden we had 3 classrooms in 4th grade. And one of the 4th grade teachers, Ms. Freeberg, came out. She's like, "Hey, I can take them all. I just need a few other people to support and help out. We'll just take them all down to the Flex Cafe. We're all doing the same work in division, but we know we can do this together." And so next thing you know, we're walking kind of down the collaboration space, and a couple of the lunch or the EA, they're like, "Hey, we can help," and it's actually past the time they normally would stay. And so all of a sudden they jump in. And then we've got a few radios. So I called on the radio, and next thing you know, a few people came up from the office, and yeah, so it was just one of those things. And when you think about the sub situation, the biggest priority for us during that whole time is to really guarantee solid education for our students and making sure that they didn't miss a beat. And that doesn't, that's from my perspective, having to fill all those gaps. But when a teacher takes on that responsibility and thinks like, "Hey, we can do this," that sends a charge through everybody in that whole grade level that we can do things a little differently, and using the space, but also using each other to lean on. So that's what happened that day. And then we actually talked about like, how do we make this happen more? How do we bring groups together in that kind of a form? Because we did see the value in the range of learners that were all together in that classroom or that Flex Cafe, and what that benefit could be. So thanks, Dan, for remembering that.
Thank you, Reed. All right, we can go ahead and move on to the superintendent report. Thank you again to the Granite Ridge staff as well.